Hi, it's Dianne here talking about the fear of being visible and imposter syndrome in visionaries and gifted people. And I have a great guest with us today. Her name's Tamara Thompson. She is the CEO and amazing brain behind Serious Take Productions and runs this great conference every year called Broadcast Your Authority. I met Tamara in Arizona, actually, at a workshop, and she and Danielle were across the room from me, and somehow I knew I needed to know those people. So during the breaks, my introverted self, had to go meet them. Oh, and I was so happy I did. So I've been to Tamara's events, and since then we have made great friends through Facebook and other ways, even though we're across the country from each other. And I consider you a very good friend now, Tamara, and somebody that's a great colleague in helping people get their voice out and be seen for who they really are. And so welcome to the show today. And I have so many great questions for you. I hope you're ready.
Oh, thank you, Diane. I appreciate it. And I am so ready. I'm always ready.
You have the extroverted personality. I have the introverted personality. So here we go. Has there ever been any time in your life where you were not necessarily understood, or you were trying to get your point across or say things and people just weren't hearing you or weren't getting you? Maybe when you were younger, or sometime when you walked around going, people just don't get it.
I was like, does that count when I was like 7 years old and my brother was born?
It could.
No, I think, yeah. I mean, in my lifetime, just certain situations growing up and becoming in tune with myself and my sexuality and things like that, I think there's definitely been a space where I didn't feel like people understood me and who I was and where I was going in my life and my choices, even with family members. And, I found myself, my true calling of where I need to be and who I need to fall in love with. It was a choice. And that really opened me up. But anytime I went out, I was always going out and I wanted to be seen and heard for who I was. And so I really wanted to step out and be out. And so I did, but I found this like-minded community, but it wasn't really my community. It wasn't people that really got who I am as a person, because it was all under a mask, basically. I was going out to the bars 5 nights a week. I was doing all these things that were disruptive for myself in my 20s, not really figuring out who I was as a strong leader and a CEO boss babe at this point. But it's just this understanding that, it's okay to be me, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being a woman, people understanding me for me on different levels. And so that really pushed my life and career into a way where I finally found people that understood what I was passionate about, which was business and video production and directing films. And I went back to film school. So it was just this whole thing in my life where it actually led me to where I am now based on visibility, because I was hiding for so many years.
And so the consequence of the hiding was depression, alcoholism, and all of these spiral downward kind of behaviors, because we're taught you can't be visible. You can't be visible. Mm-hmm. And so now that you've been visible for quite some time, yeah. And so all of you is very multifaceted and really amazing and creative and everything. And so sometimes people who are visionaries and creative can feel like imposters, because what comes naturally to you and your genius, sometimes it can go, well, it's just so easy and it's hard for other people, but maybe I'm a fake, or maybe people won't really like me or know me when they really see the real me.
Even with working with our clients in regards to putting themselves out visibly on the video camera or the Zoom call or a smartphone, I think that kind of connects together. Is people don't feel like I'm very animated. You'll watch my videos and I'm just wow, I'll be don't be boring. I'm animated, but that's just me, and people will make fun or whatever, but I brush it off because, they're hiding behind their own insecurities of making fun of me being animated, because they're just too afraid to get on camera, period. Right. And so I'm definitely not afraid to be on camera. And when my dad bought a camera when I was 7 years old, I started jumping in front of the camera. And the reason they bought it was because my brother was born. They're like, Tamara, get out of the way. We're trying to film your baby brother. And I'm like, you should see this footage, Dianne, like this old VHS tape. I'm like, I like this pouty face. I'm like, but I've been like the only child for like 7 years. And then my brother comes in and he's just like a cute little baby. But like, so I've always been like not afraid of the camera, but like clients will come to us and they feel like this imposter syndrome comes across because they almost feel like they're a fraud, because some people will say a sense like, well, I need to do my hair and makeup on camera, but I walk around in my yoga pants all day or something. They might like, the way that they want to position and put themselves out on camera might be different than the way they actually are in their everyday practices, So I think people get this misconception because they have to feel like they have to feel polished, or, they have to do their hair and makeup. They have to do this to come across perfect. And I actually did a video podcast last week, where we released it all about, the naysayers, as well as like fighting perfection. Right. And right. So when you act like a perfectionist, which I know I have my perfectionist tendinalities, but I had to let go of that, because I needed people to resonate with me, my message, my personality. And that's what's most important, because somebody's going to listen to something that you said. They're going to see it in your facial expression. Right. They're going to hear or see the passion, whatever that looks like, and the passion always shines through with me. And that's what people say about me. But when other people can get that confidence up, when they finally see that they're helping somebody, even if it's just one listener, and somebody writes you and gives you like this great review on iTunes, or they send you a private message. I've had people do that. I was on John Lee Dumas's Entrepreneur on Fire podcast probably about 4 years ago. And I had a guy write me out of the blue just saying like, I don't ever do this, but I felt called to write you. Yeah, like you great. Totally touched me. And, I ended up getting on a call with him, because I was like, let me know a little bit more about you and see how I can help you or connect you in the right spaces. And so it's just like being able, when you put yourself out there consistently, people find you, people see you. It's important to be visible, because there's so many people in the world, and so many people can be almost misplaced and not be able to be found. When you have so many gifts to share, why not put yourself out there? And don't worry about what other people think. Once you get going, you kind of get on this high. You're like, wee, you're like, yay, like I'm serving people, I'm having fun doing it, and I have a message that I want to share. And so it's really one of those things is like, no matter what you want to put yourself out on the side of your branding and positioning, you're not an imposter. That's just a part of you for your brand, right? Like you want a specific part of your brand, but don't be afraid to do a Facebook Live or a Zoom call, with your makeup not done that day, ladies, it just men have it a little easier. They can roll out of bed and poof, Right. I have really long hair, so it's a little bit harder for me. Right. Yeah. But it's one of those things that I think everybody in the world feels it. At some point in their life, they feel like they're an imposter for something, some situation because you want to feel like you fit in, right?
Right. And some people feel like they're imposters because what they're so good at comes so naturally, and they didn't have to study really hard, or maybe it's a natural gift. And so therefore it's like, well, I didn't have to work that hard, so it's really not that valuable. And so therefore that it doesn't have that credibility, maybe, even though it does. And so when you have a client that you're helping, maybe that has that kind of situation where you can see the gifts in them and they don't really see it quite yet, like they're wanting to, but they're not quite there. What would be like 2 tips you would give somebody who's listening to us right now and goes, wow, I have a message. I want to be animated and I'd be out there. I don't really know how to do it. What would be 2 beginning tips for the listener out there? We're in like 60 something countries, so you're talking to people all over. So what would you tell them?
I think the first thing is just being open to being vulnerable. When you're able to share things with people on a vulnerability level, and that you strike that true connection, just knowing that you're understood and there's somebody that's going to resonate with you. Those stories, like sharing stories of vulnerability in your life and your business and where you've been here and how you've gotten here to show yourself as the expert, I think it's very relatable for people, because it shows your authenticity, your realness, and I know there's a lot of people out there, they're like, oh, I hate the word authenticity. And I'm like, well, it is in the dictionary for a reason. So I'm like, it's funny because in the digital marketing space, people say that they see these trends with these words. And I'm like, it's just a real word. You're authentic, you're real. So if you use the word real or authentic, it's up to you what word choice you use. But I think people need to just get over the fact of like digital marketing trends that are changing and just understand that we're speaking human English here.
Right.
So I always tell people it's good to be able to be vulnerable and find that story that connects the dots from where they were when they started their business to where they are now, because being able to share results and how you've helped people through that vulnerability story is very powerful. And for those that are just struggling with just getting started with just recording a video, that would probably be the first step before the vulnerability part. But, I always tell people, it's a sense of like practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress. So when you're putting yourself out there with video, or they're nervous about just getting going, being visible and being heard, just test it out. Like we do like a live stream with a friend in like a Facebook group or something. Like I've done stuff with clients where we created just a private Facebook group between myself and the client, where we actually just practice a Facebook Live together so that they had somebody on their screen that they know, liked, and trust. Because if it's really that nerve-wracking nervousness to like put yourself out there, like that's one way to actually just help someone be comfortable with somebody there. And then when you're ready to go live on your regular page or post a video, you don't even have to, do a Facebook Live first. Just record like a quick minute video on your smartphone and post it on Facebook or post it on Instagram, and ask for feedback from your closest friends to say like, hey, how do you think I did? Like, what would you like to hear me talk about? Because when you start interacting with people, for them to say like, I'd really like you, Dianne, to talk about, this topic, and so then you're asking your audience, and those people are already in tune to want to watch and listen because you're talking their language, right? And so I think that's one way to really get people to step out that are just kind of hanging out. You're really good on video, so you've already got this. Like, but if people just are looking to start somewhere, just to get a close group of friends to get feedback and post that first video, and don't delete it. People would post stuff and they'll say, I did 22 takes and the first one was the best, and then I deleted it. I'm like, oh, don't delete it. I'm like, let it go. So it's everybody's opinion for themselves, but they have to be comfortable within themselves first.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's so funny because I always think, start wherever you are. Like when I started doing videos, or I started doing any of the things I'm doing, I'm like, well, I'm just where I am, wherever that is. And I was real judgmental at sometimes. And I thought, well, I'm an imposter who says I'm the expert, even though I am. And all of those things would go through my head. And then over time, I'm like, well, hold on a second. I can step in the spotlight, and that works. And I am the expert in what I do. And there's no question about it. And so it's easier for me now not to have that imposter feeling or that kind of recoiling kind of thing. Like I don't want people to see. And so like, I like your advice, just get out there and do it. So if you're listening to us, I'm 100% introverted. Tamara is extroverted, and we both are on video a lot. Right. And so therefore you too can fit into one of these other places, and you can get on video too, because it's really fun. And it's also important. I think that getting our message out there and saying what's true for us in this day and age is so important. When you look around at the landscape of just what's happening in our world, a lot of us have really amazing messages, and keeping it to ourselves is the best kept secret is a really terrible idea. It's time to not be the best kept secret in town, no matter what.
Yeah, I think people have a idea in their head that they're like, oh yeah, I know actually one of my mentors, they like literally call him, the best kept secret, or the secret weapon. And I was telling him, I was like, you're one of my mentors and stuff like that. And you have like a Facebook group, and you're very humble, but at the same time, like he's over there, he actually works a job, like he's very successful, like president of like a company, and he's helping his wife retire from her 9-to-5 and starting her own online business. So he's doing all these things for other people, But he's so smart and intelligent. Like I always tell him, I'm like, you need to do more for you to put your expertise out there. You know, and we invested in this mastermind with him because of his knowledge and things like that. But he's always doing things for other people, and he doesn't put himself out on the like live streams. He doesn't do any of that. He does Zoom calls and stuff with clients and stuff like that. But he's never like boasting himself. He's very humble man. But I was like, just think about so many more people that you can reach, more than the conversations that you have within these Zoom calls and more than in these masterminds. Like think of your knowledge, like you've spoken at my events before. So it's just interesting to see like how people are. You have to learn their personalities though, to see what you can do to help them. You know, everybody's different. So I always ask people's, you know, birthdays, their personality types, you know, have them take personality tests. What's your love language, you know, because it's so intriguing when you learn about people or listen, take the time to listen to them and understand what they appreciate. You know, like I'm a words of affirmation type of woman. You know, I love appreciation. So like being able to understand, you know, people's love languages. And it's not about just love, but it's about knowing their love languages within business and personality archetypes too. And it helps so much. Like I'm on Zoom calls and I'm just listening and I'm paying attention and seeing their reactions to how they react to a specific type of statement that I just said. If I'm talking to somebody, like yesterday, we had a Zoom call with a gal that has a chiropractic clinic, and she just starts lighting up when she's going into her knowledge, and like she's so intelligent with her background. Like you could tell that she enjoyed the feedback, appreciation of her hard work for her business. And so I was like, she's a words of affirmation person. Like she likes acts of service too, because she hired our team to do all of this stuff for her. And she's like, I'm putting it in your hands. You know, we take care of people because they're delegating out, putting this done for you service in their hands so that they don't have to focus on it. So all they have to do is really find the right titles and keywords that we provide for people to help them share their messages, like you on your show. It's just like this circle. Like when you figure those little points out for people in general, your business and your message will go 10 times farther, especially on video stuff.
That's really fun. So I have another question for you that has to do with the intersection of personal development and professional development. And I have a belief that your business cannot outgrow your own personal development if you're the one running it. And so I would like you to speak a little bit to the power of personal transformation and personal development and how specifically it has helped you in your business actually scale it and move it into something bigger.
Yeah. You know, it's what's interesting. So when I found the show Shark Tank like 10 years ago, it was weird. I had graduated film school and I was working for an online educational platform where I helped scale their business and their entire video department structure, everything from the way that their videos should be shorter to the creative side of their videos to the story that needs to be shared so that keep people's attention.
Right.
And so when I was in this office space working with these millennials at the time, so I was a little bit older than everybody coming in from out of college, and they started talking about Shark Tank. And I was like, "What?" I'm like, "What's that? Is it like on the Discovery Channel or something?" You know, what is a Shark Tank thing? I literally thought they were talking about like sharks, because I'm like deathly afraid of sharks, even though I've watched the movie Jaws like 20 times. And so I started watching Shark Tank, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I started kind of connecting the dots and listening to how, you know, Lori Grenier, you know, Damon John, all these people spoke. And I was like, wow, like, what is it? What's the point of these people's success, you know, between this and this? Like, why do people gain success and, you know, versus people in their mindsets of like having a 9-to-5 and stability, right? Like people have this misconception of like, this is what I get paid, this is what I'm worth. And so I started watching The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis too. And I manifested the whole idea of meeting him one day, and I'll fast forward a few years in a little bit, but I was like, man, this guy gets it. He's like, people, process, and product, people first. And so I was like, I'm like, that's interesting. And I love talking with people. And then I started doing research on entrepreneurial events, things that involved, people from the Shark Tank. Because I was like, these people have really smart ideas. Like, it would be cool to invent an item or a product and get on Shark Tank. That was like my thought, like
Right.
10 years ago. I was like, I want to create a product. What can I create that can help this person get to here? Like, there was my, mind at the time. But what happened was, I started doing this research, and then I saw this conference called like Life on Fire. And I was like, I started watching the videos and stuff. And I saw that Damon John was going to be speaking at this conference, and it was in San Diego. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go down there and see what this is about. So Danielle and I booked flights. We went down there, and it was just like an exhilarating experience because we're walking on glass, breaking through boards. It kind of reminded me of like a Tony Robbins but not quite. It wasn't like jump up and down all the time, but it was like business elements, marketing things, like just things that started just expanding my mind. I was like, wow, I'm thinking way too small, because here I was charging packages, for $300, and all of a sudden, I was feeling devalued for all the service that I was doing for people for a month as more of like a freelancer, instead of building a company at the time in the video space. And then I went there, and I like literally got the confidence to be like, here's $300, but I could sell this for $2,500. And just coming across that mindset shift was huge. Like, when people can allow themselves to step into shifting their mindset, but also move forward with that thought, and then restructuring it, shifting it when they need be, when something's not working. Like, it's like this back and forth game with yourself and your mind about where you truly are and where you see yourself going. So I always step into my space as if I'm already there. So it's the power of the manifestation. I don't know, have you read The Vivid Vision by Cameron Herold?
Oh, yes.
So when he talks about, stepping into that vivid vision for your company, like, it's really about like, where's your company at in 3 years? And I wanted to see things happen. I didn't want to be the person shooting videos, editing the videos, directing the videos, because all my energy would be like, like I would just wear out. And so I started thinking way bigger, because a lot of people get stuck in, and it's okay if that's their business model and they're, a solo consultant or, healer or whatever that is for your business. But what are some ways that you can help monetize and grow that business with you not being a full part of it all the time? I was like, what can I do to create this? So I started delegating out videographers in different states for our projects, like vetting, recruiting videographers, because I had to let go of that aspect of having to control the production, because I couldn't be everywhere, right? I only live in one spot. And so what was crazy about the elements of bringing in my mindset with the business, every time I told myself I need to push more, a little bit more, so I can get here, what were the strategic steps for me to grow and scale? I had to delegate, and shifting my mindset was the two things coming together. And the personal development and the business development, that really helps us grow. And it was crazy. So I went from like a freelancer to, a salary at like $45,000 a year, to shifting to the first year as a freelancer over $65,000, to the next year doubling that to $125,000, then doubling that the next year. So it was just like, whoa, when you're able to open the mindset to say like, oh my gosh, like, a lot of people don't even generate, 6 figures in the year. But when they understand that they can do that, they just have to figure out the dots, like who they need to surround themselves with, where they need to delegate, where their price points are at. Like, it's insane to know that these two pieces come hand in hand when you're building your business. It's just, and mentorship is much recommended. And, even like mindset coaching and just figuring out where you need to be next and who you need to surround yourself with to build those connections to grow, not just on the business side, but the mindset and hanging around those people that can just pull you just even more, So it's just, that's really been where I started. I walked into a room one day and I just said to myself, I can do this. And I signed up for a $10,000 program. And at the moment I was like, okay, I need to generate that back rather quickly. And I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? You know, it was funny because everybody in the room's either like going to the room, back in the room to sign up, or they're like, oh, I can't afford this. And I just always take the words I can't out of my vocabulary. Like you can do anything you want. It's your choice if you want to do it or not, or how hard you work to make the connection to make that money back that you want to pay for this experience for yourself. And like when it's on the side of personal development and you're investing in yourself, you know, you got to think that it's going to come back tenfold. I see people coming, you know, an objection of enrolling in our program would be like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm like, why? I'm like, why are you not ready? So pulling out the objections and figuring out it's really people's mindsets of like, that's holding them back to scale their business, right? So I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think that I connected the dots in the sense of like that's really what happened. And what was mind-blowing for me is when we invested this $10K for this program, within a matter of 10 days, I generated $25,000 back. And then in a matter of 6 weeks, I generated another $21,000 back. And then there went from my mindset of being an employee in corporate, making $45,000 a year, to making $45,000 in a matter of 6 weeks. I was just ecstatic. Like, it wasn't about the money, but the fact that I was like, wow, like I can do this. I can provide value, and we provide great experiences for people on the side of video production and marketing. And I got excited. So I'm like, now we like over deliver. We want to please our clients. We want to make sure that we do stuff because it's not just about people paying us, but like, how can we connect the dots otherwise too? So that's really been an important key element, mindset, professional development, but the connecting the dots with other people, because we're all in this space together. And so when we help other people grow with meaningful introductions, like for shows or for clients or for experiences or events, like we're connecting people with other people that will open doors for you long term. And that's how I look at business now.
Oh, that's like really fun. I laugh a lot because I always ask myself the question, is what I'm about to do going to get me where I say I want to go? Because a lot of times, a lot of the visionaries I work with say they want to get to a certain place, but their actions don't line up yet because they're not really discerning what the proper way is to handle it or to take the risk and take the action that's going to get you where you want to go. So if you want to grow personally and become more conscious and aware, or you want to grow your business, or if you don't own a business, but you still want to grow personally so you're better at whatever you're doing, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or whether you're a high school kid or whatever, if you want to get better, you have to be willing to step out and take a risk. And so my ongoing question is what I'm doing going to get me where I say I want to go, whatever that looks like, you know? And that's kind of what you're talking about too. It's like using that discernment to be able to say, okay, what am I getting where I say I want to go? And then how can I keep expanding? Because the universe is always expanding.
Well, and I always tell people too, I have this kind of like, whoa, like story, big investment story, right? But people need to understand that it can be in those stories of our everyday life, no matter where they're at. Like you said, like a stay-at-home mom, like making a goal and taking that risk to help better like her and her family, you know, it's like that too. So it doesn't have to be this huge, like I'm a huge risk taker at this point, but calculated risks.
Yes.
Because I've seen things happen where I will invest something and I feel like I did not receive what I wanted to receive out of the experience, but then I start being more patient and all of a sudden it's coming back 6 months, 9 months later based on the relationships of that investment. So I'm like, okay, patience, but also trying. And people, they don't try. You know, they're like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Or if you say I'm going to do that tomorrow, most of the time you don't. So, and it's like 4 months later. But it's personality type too. So not everybody has my personality, and you know more about my backstory and all the stuff that I went through where I was like rock bottom. Mm-hmm. I was like, I can't be here at this rock bottom. That was the only time I said I can't be. I'm like, I can't be down here anymore. I need to be up here.
Right.
So it's like, but yeah, so it's like, it's not the sense of just having to be a risk taker or you elevate yourself so fast that, because it hasn't been simple being an entrepreneur or business owner either. I'm not saying that moment was like, oh, it's life-changing forever. There's ups and downs and through those risks as well. And the communication, listening, learning, working on yourself within. I remember when I broke through that board. So it took me two times to break through the board. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get a huge bruise on my hand. that was my thought. And then I was like, but everyone was doing it. And I was like, okay, I got this. And yeah, it was like really just seeing that vision, seeing it through the board, and I broke through it. And walking on glass was easy peasy. I'm like, anybody can walk on glass. It's literally like, just don't walk fast and just only step up and over, down, up, over, down, instead of like trying to shuffle. So if you're making these movements of up, over, flat, down, anybody can walk on glass without being cut. Like, it's just one of those things where people are like, oh, I'm going to cut myself. The same way in business and life, like we bring up these fears that we have to get through, but it can be an everyday life fear. You know, the fear of letting your kid play outside in the front yard for the first time on a busy street on their bike alone, you know, like different things that we are fearful of. But understanding the trust and know-how within ourselves and paying attention to our space will help us grow in our business and our families.
So how do you help people who are procrastinating? Like maybe somebody says, oh, Tamara, you know, I really want you guys to help me and I love what you guys are doing. Or even a friend, you know, it's not even work related. And procrastination is the game. Like, and not even necessarily with a bunch of excuses, but there are certain things that they say they're going to do and it's just not happening. And they'll even maybe say, well, I'm just procrastinating. I don't know how to get started. What would you tell somebody who wants to get started and they are procrastinating all over the place, other than like shaking them? What would you say?
I think, well, I'm considered like the follow-up queen. So people are always saying your follow-ups have gotten me places. So it's about just keeping people accountable. So if you know for a fact that there was actually a client that recently enrolled with us, but had that fear of kind of perfection side, like getting started. So she just sent us her first episode this week. So we're finally rolling out that. So she finally did that. But I literally said, I said, why are you waiting? I'm like, can you just tell me why you're waiting? And she was just like, it's within my own self. And I said, what can I do to help support you through this process? I was like, did you watch my video last week on perfection? She was like, no, actually. And she says, I'm going to go watch it. As soon as she watched that video, the next day she sent us her first episode. But it's nice. Like really like asking the questions, like what they need help, what they feel like they need help with, I think, on pushing them. Like certain people act a different way. Like they don't want the people pushing them, or they want the push. So you have to learn their personalities too without offending them. So it's really about listening to their needs in that moment to keep them accountable through that process, and just being there to support them. Really, everybody's different.
Yeah. That's really cool. But I think it's really important, like you said, to really be listening and know who you're speaking to and who you're interacting with, because everybody does respond differently to the push, or what kind of push, or not the push at all. And when somebody says the answer is, well, the answer is within me. Well, yes, the answer to that's yes. But we're also mammals, and our brains also need to be regulated together. And so how can you use my prefrontal cortex to help yours get unstuck? Yeah. And sometimes it's just that, you know, it's supporting each other enough so that it gives that other system permission to not be so stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of fun. I'm sure you guys see it all. It's really, really amazing. The one that I always love to ask, and that is, if you could put a message on a billboard that everyone would see, what would be on that billboard?
That's a good question. From a marketing standpoint, I could totally put up like, are you ready to broadcast your authority? But that'd be kind of cheesy. But I would say, in the sense of like, just, I know the billboards that have gotten my attention are the emotional ones. So like finding a way to put something about, like, don't be afraid to be you, I think would be probably something that I'd put up there, because people are driving in traffic. People are, you know, owning my own business. That's one thing I love. I can choose when I go, where I go, and I don't have to go into traffic anymore in my life. But it's one of those things that when I'm driving, I always pay attention to the billboards. Like, I'm like, what's the emotional factor here? What's the sense of the quote that's there? Like, even if it's like a university of some sort, I'm like, that's a way to get the millennials' attention. But I think it's just something along the lines of, don't be afraid to be you, no matter where you're going in your path, because I think everybody that's stopping in traffic that's going past that sign can relate to it in some way or another, because they're afraid of going somewhere in their life. So.
Right. So don't be afraid to be you. Hear that, everybody? Don't be afraid to be you. It's a great thing to like stand in the spotlight and be who you're, everything you're meant to be, because each one of us is unique and special and perfect exactly as we are. And so any message other than that is not quite honest. It's a little bit off base, at least in Dianne's world. And since this is my show, that's the way it is. So is there anything that you wanted to talk about today that I didn't ask you about? Anything on your heart that you would like to tell people, because the whole goal of the show is to have people feel hope for where they are and their future, and know that what people might be labeling as their liabilities are really their assets. And so people who have imposter syndrome, or people who don't really understand how it all goes together, can think it's a liability, and really it's an asset. So is there anything on your heart that you would like to share, so that when we're finished with the show, you feel complete?
Yeah, I'd say, especially speaking to people that may be introverted, or you feel like they have a message to share and they just don't know where to start, or they don't feel like they have the support for it, or they're concerned about people labeling them, or, I think labeling has been something, I'd created a documentary film all about labeling and stereotypes with women back in 2012 in Seattle. And it was intriguing to me because I wasn't sure how much it would impact people, like getting these women's stories out there. It was a really eye-opening experience, because all of a sudden my film, I got this call from Seattle, and they're like, your film sold out and we want to show it in the second theater next door the same night. And we want to add a third showing, and that you want to be over here. And they want the director to come speak to these women that were viewing this film all about labeling and stereotypes. And it was just such an eye-opening experience of like just understanding when I was going through to understand myself, like, because I can perceive people in a specific way. And we had a woman that was very tomboyish, that wore a hat and jeans and a t-shirt, but she loved to get pedicures and manicures, and spoke in a feminine way. You had like a very strong female feminine fashion designer, but it's very domineering and assertive, and it was bringing these women together through this experience of, I helped them share their stories through this, but a lot of them thanked me because they had never been on video before, but they realized that they needed that story to share. They had that story to share. We had a couple that had been together for 22 years, and people judged them, and they had a son together. And, these things that people worry about every day in our heads is one of those things that, you need to understand that there's going to be people out there that might not want to listen to your story, but there's plenty, 10 times more, 100 times more people that actually want to hear your story. And then that film ended up going viral on YouTube, and I had over 800,000 views in a matter of a few months. And then I was asked, and it sold out in Palm Springs. And that's really where I got to this point where I was like, oh my gosh, like I have viral video stories being shared with these women that were concerned to put themselves out there, but now they've inspired more women to share their stories. And so that's really where my company came into play, is really being able to have people step out and share their stories. And if it's something that's holding you back for you sharing it yourself, I recommend to people just have somebody there with you, like have them asking the questions so that you can feel comfortable to speaking to them or the camera. A lot of the times people will create videos, documentary style, so they're not looking right at the camera, so they get nervous, right? But like facing offset to speak to somebody, that they can share that story. It can be a very emotional way to record a video. If you really feel like you're inspired to work with someone, or you want to know how, I'd say, connect with people like Dianne and the other experts in their industry that can help you get your message out there. I think that's just super important at this point of realizing you have a story to share, if it's like a minimal story that you think's really small, or it's a compelling, dramatic story, rock bottom story like I have, you just have to understand that all stories are meant to be heard. You just have to figure out which one throughout your life path is the story to share that can connect with people on a deeper emotional level. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is helping people pull that out, in that sense. It's not just like you have this story and this message, right? But why not keep it consistently congruent and grow over time? Because you're going to help people you're going to help share your message to other people.
Right. And so ultimately that story is honoring our own path and our own journey. And I've heard people say, well, you don't want to hear my story because it's boring, or it's just the same, or it's whatever. And I'm like, well, actually, I do want to hear it, because I love to honor all of our journeys and all of our paths, however that would be. And so you're saying the same kind of thing. It's like, our stories really are valuable and they really are important. And it's only our own inner deception that says they're not. And it's just internal. Other people really are inspired by our stories, and you might share your story and that inspires somebody else to finally step up and start sharing their story. And that's no bigger, better impact in my world, on our world, than giving someone else permission to be their authentic, real self. Yeah. So that any imposter kind of idea or all that stuff that goes on, that fear, can just be put to rest very easily.
Yeah, because you have your own permission to share your story. When people are fearful and they have other people, stating, I give you permission to share your story, you have it within yourself to give yourself permission. It's just being able to, once you do share that story, it's, there's things that I do really well at pulling out little points within that story I connect the dots on how that little story that they feel like it doesn't mean anything to them, but it's in their head for a reason. That story is there for a reason.
Yes.
Connecting the dots to why they do what they do and where they want to go with that story. People are like, wow, I didn't even think about that, connecting to that and that connecting to that. And that's really why you do what you do. That's why our stories are compelling. And it's just being able to have somebody, an outsider, kind of step in to help you figure out, like, let's just connect the dots together.
So I'm going to start calling you Tamara Thompson, the dot connector.
I like it.
Because you are really good at connecting the dots, but I could just see the little ball, going, here we go, we're connecting the dots. That's my new name for you. And
I'm blessed to have that ability. It really is just being able to listen to people. So
yes, you do have
yeah.
You have a great ability. So is there anything else that you would like to say before we end this episode?
Well, if anybody's feeling, that burning desire to share their message, or want to personally connect with myself, I just say, find me. Tamara Thompson, Director Tamara Thompson on Facebook is a great space to find me, and a Facebook group as well, Broadcast Your Authority. So if you feel like you have that urge to step out and be visible or share your message, or at least see what we're up to, just find us, find me. And it's easier than you think. Once you get started, it's a lot easier to be vulnerable, be seen, be heard, and get excited once you take action.
Well, everybody, you have been listening to my good friend, Tamara Thompson, the Dot Connector. That's my new title for her. And you can find her at Serious Take Productions, and her event is Broadcast Your Authority. She's everywhere you want to be, like a Visa card. And if you've been inspired by anything that she has said today, or anything that I've said today, reach out to either one of us, because that's what we're here for. And you will find nothing but warm reception on the other end of that reach out, whether it's an email or whatever it is. So if Tamara has inspired you today, please follow her, contact her, let her know you heard her on the show, and let her know how she inspired you, because that is something that's very important to her.
So I want to say also, those that enjoy listening to Dianne's podcast, I'm thankful to be on the show, but this is your show and you're helping people be heard because of you and what you're doing for other people. And I say, please leave her a review on iTunes or comments and YouTube, because she's amazing too. And she produces, creates these shows and gets them out there. So it really is about being visible, and she's a great person as well. I'm super blessed that I'm on this show today. Thank you, Dianne.
Cool. Thank you so much for that compliment. And I'm just really grateful for your time today. I was so excited to get to hang out with you and talk about all kinds of amazing things and share your wisdom with others.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm blessed to know you too.
Thank you. So everybody remember to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you're a rock star and you're here on purpose with a purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. And until the next episode, be well. I trust you enjoyed today's show. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure you ring the bell so you can see all the episodes as they come out. Episodes just like this, meant to inspire you and enrich your life. Until next time, be well.